All right, fantastic. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Corning Museum of Glass Bring the Heat demo. I'm G. Bryan. I'll be working with Catherine Ayers today. We've got Amanda with us answering all of our questions online.
And my name is Carl Siglin. I'll be working with Helen Taylor.
Carl, you got to turn your mic on.
My name's Carl Siglin, and we've got Helen Tegler joining us as well as Matt Wilbur up in the booth doing all the AV. Catherine's assisting one of our in-house guests to show up on the floor, and we're going to get started on our mesmerizing, marbleizing event here.
Fantastic. So we're going to get started, both of us. Hey, welcome. Glad you guys made it down. We're going to get started by mixing up some color. As our demo name suggests, we're going to marbleize up some color. So we're going to make two different pieces today. Yeah, I'm ready, Helen, thank you. We're going to make two different pieces. I'm going to make one piece. Carl's going to, of course, make the other. And we're going to show everyone two different ways to mix and marble color, as well as two different ways to use the encalmo technique, two different ways to join two different bubbles together. So a fun demo plan.
And then we're actually going to make two completely different vessels for those of you that are in-house and online. G's going to make a large platter very similar to the one you see here on the marble, and I'm going to make a tall reverse axis encalmo vase.
All right. So to get started with my color pattern, you can see the platter on the screen there with the black band around it. We're going to get started. There we go. We're going to get started with that center mixing of the color, the kind of those purples, reddish amethyst, a beautiful, yeah, thank you, Helen. A real nice kind of a harmony of colors here. And so the first thing that I need to do is pick up a little bit of color and blend and mix it together, marble it together, if you will.
And one of the things we're both going to do is use white in our marbleization. My marbleizing will actually happen on the bubble, and we'll pull the white up through the color. G is actually going to do this kind of stretch and taffy fold with the white built into that process of color. And we've got an excellent example on the marble here. I don't know if they can get a close-up shot inside that to show you what happens as you twist and stretch and marbleize that beautiful folding of the color.
All right, look at Matt on the camera there. You can see the inside of the color bar with the white and then the outside with the colors. And so when I come over, you can see how the white is going to be on the center, and then I've got two different, well, really I've got four different gem tones that I'll be mixing together. There's three on the side I'm flattening now, and just one on this side. Today's piece will have a lot of beautiful ambers and pinks in it, where the one I'm mixing right now will actually be for another piece. The one I'm mixing right now is going to be a really beautiful gold topaz, like a really nice amber color with a little bit of a red wine mix into it. So I like to mix 3, 4, sometimes even 5 different colors to get a nice marble technique, but I do use the white colored glass as a primer to really make those gem tones, those transparent gem tones, really pop against the opaque white.
Now we are going to get started on the second piece, getting the overlay portion of this done. And as I said, I do my marbleizing on the iron, so we'll set our white up first, and then we're going to drop my 3 colors over the white, and then do my color manipulation right on the bubble.
Okay, so far I've got the colored glass now, my 4 different colors, well 5, if we count the white, all pretty much the same temperature. And this is where Carl said we're going to stretch it like taffy. That's where this part comes in. So I'm going to get the glass nice and hot, and then I'm going to just let it more or less drip onto the table. I like to let it elongate like this, and then fold it a couple different times. I like to do it in 3, and then to try and minimize any air that may be trapped. Any air that could be trapped in the color will actually leave little bubbles, which big bubbles really aren't desirable. This technique, and being handmade, it's going to have a couple of air traps, a couple of little bubbles.
Thank you.
But I try to minimize it and keep it to just the smallest little bubbles that I can. And that just requires us to do this really hot. So I'm going to heat and mix this. Boy, I think ideally I would take about a half an hour to mix this color up. And we'll mix it and bend and fold it about 40 times. When Helen was kind of showing off that one display of the color bar that I already made. If you really could, you could count down in there and you'd see, wow, there's like 40 different bands of white. But we're not going to do all 40. We're not going to spend a half an hour just showing this color mixing technique because it's more or less the same exact thing over and over and over again. We'll do a couple of them so you folks at home, maybe other glassmakers that want to try this pattern out, can see it, and I'll show you a couple different ways to do it as well.
Now, in the meantime, I've gotten a fairly thick, for the non-glass blowers in the audience who don't understand the overlay, we've gotten a fairly thick, solid, compact bubble, and Helen is heating a piece of R61, which is a fairly stiff enamel white, and we're going to drop that on the end of here in the first of my 2 overlays. I think G's got an overlay, actually 2 overlays coming in his process as well. So you'll see this several times throughout the morning.
Are you using enamel white?
Am I using enamel white? I am using enamel white, R61, the Reichenbach colors. There's a few different color makers out there. There's Reichenbach, Kugler, Gaffer, those are kind of your main ones. And the museum here, they order for the most part, primarily the Reichenbach. And you can go right online and go to Olympic Color Rods and check out their website and order the different colors. They'll ship it right to your door.
And again, for the non-glass blowers in our audience, colored glass is gotten by adding different mostly metal oxides to glass to change the color in the melting phase. G mentioned jewel tones. We're using lots of reds, blues, yellows, greens. So we're seeing things like iron and cobalt and copper and gold to make some of the colors that you see used here on the stage. Like he said, we buy them from overseas. They're consistent in their color, and more importantly, they're coefficiently as consistent with our clear glass, so we don't have to worry about problems in the annealing process.
Now for today's fun demo, it seems like, I don't know about you, Carl, but I'm always attracted to the very expensive colors. So for this demo, we figured let's spare no expense. I pulled out some gold ruby, some gold topaz, a little bit of a wine red, all those gold chloride-based colors.
I picked the salmon pink, one of my favorites. That's the half of the bottle you see on the marver there.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
amber.
The gold ruby as well. Another gorgeous, gorgeous gold-based color.
So we want to thank all the museum members out there online for helping support our glass habit and our expensive colors. Thanks so much. All right, I'm going to mix this one more time, but I'm going to do a little bit of a different technique, something that you folks can try at home as well. And instead of just letting the color drip onto the marber, what I'm going to do is actually cut it with a pair of shears. And as Carl finishes up his overlay there, by cutting it with the shears, you can stack that color up. And again, this is just another way to put the color together, flip it around. There we go. And then just kind of squish it one more time. So a couple different ways to try this out. The amount of mixing that you do, yeah, I know that it's the right consistency. I know that the color has been mixed enough when I can really start to see those transparent colors through. In the beginning, the colors are very dark. The transparents almost look black. But the more I mix it, maybe you folks in the front row will actually start to see those purples, those ambers start to show up.
So, G, we've got an online question about
All right.
how many times, what's the most times you've ever folded or overlaid your colors? Now, when I get to my process a little later, I actually count the number of times I clip and tweeze the color, and I think the most I've ever done in one vessel is 21. I think we're going to do 15 today.
All right. You know, that's a good question, Carl. I don't really go by how many times I do it. I don't actually even count, because what I'm doing is I'm looking for a particular way that the color looks. It's like when I'm heating the glass, I'm not counting to 5 or counting to 10 to know that the glass is hot. I'm looking at the material itself, and that is what's telling me when it's done. If you over mix the colors really blend and you don't get those rich, vibrant pops of color. In some of the pieces on the marber, you see how the vibrancy of the color, where if you over mix it, it kind of becomes muddled. Yeah, you can see in the platter right now how you've got that vibrant color. And if you over mix it, you lose that vibrancy.
So while G is wrapping up the folding of that color, I've got my white overlay using the marver to push that little bit of white down around my clear bubbles. Now, why do we do this? Colored glass, whether it be the white or the transparent jewel tones that G is using, those colors can be extremely tacky or sticky when they're on the surface, either the inside or the outside surface. So by having a little bit of clear glass pushing the white down around it, the inside of the vessel will tool fairly easily, and then we're going to drop some color down over this. And like I said, where G is manipulating and marbleizing his color here before he gets started with the overlay, we're going to do mine right on this bubble a little bit later in the process.
Yeah, two different ways to do, I guess, two kind of similar things. Now, one thing, talking about mixing that color and how do we know when it's ready, how many times do you do it? One thing that I do like to do is I like to mix the color up, let it cool down, and then crack it open, kind of like a geode, and you get to see what's inside. Now, in my case, if I look at it and I say, oh, I see a big chunks of white and big chunks of color and it doesn't look thoroughly mixed, I can actually just reheat it, pick it up again, mix it until I'm satisfied, and mix it until I'm happy. So that's what we've done here. Helen started now by picking up a piece that we actually mixed up yesterday. I saw that when I cracked it open and saw the striation of the color, I was happy with the way that it looked. The white to that transparent ratio, it looked good. It looked like it was ready to go. And so that's what we're using today. And then the bar that I'm mixing up now, this will be ready for another day.
The other thing that's nice about your system, G, that I like is I'll get a one vessel out of my marbleization. It's a one and done. I don't get more. You can get 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on how much color you pick up, how much you marver it and twist it and manipulate it, and then how big a piece you need to make your actual vessel. So
yeah, that's true. So if I want to make a bigger vessel, I could use a bigger chunk of color. Normally when I mix these up, because it takes about a half an hour start to finish to mix the color, I try to get 3 vessels out of each color bar, and that gives me a nice triptych of pieces too. So
yep.
I'll make one bowl, one kind of squat vase, and then one taller vase. And then when you log on to my Etsy page, for example, you'll see all 3 vessels there, and you'll say, boy, all 3 of those would make nice centerpieces. Or maybe you just pick up the one.
Right. And I go through the entire process, taking about the same amount of time, 25, 30 minutes to get marbleized, but I get the one vessel, and 2 of my vessels are never even close to being the same. We can use the same color, but the result is always different on the side of the bottle. So we'll see how this works out. It's going to be fun.
All right, so I've handed that color that I was mixing off to Catherine. And in the meantime, Helen's gotten started with the overlay. Right before we started, thanks Helen, I actually pre-made the bubble on the blowpipe that I'll be doing the overlay with. So we saw Carl overlay white glass onto a clear glass bubble. I'll be overlaying the pre-mixed color pattern onto the clear glass bubble.
Now, for, again, the non-glass blowers in the audience, certainly want to include you. We've got a couple pieces of equipment here that are being utilized. We did start early on a couple of pieces to speed the process up. On the right side of our awesome stage here at the museum, we've got what is referred to as a garage. That piece of equipment with the 2 arched doors, it's literally for parking pieces in there. G had made his overlay bubble earlier, stuck it in there. It holds it at right around 1,000 degrees. We can pull it out, jump back into the reheat chamber, and move on with the process. Over behind Catherine on the far left of the stage, we have an electric pickup box. It does the exact same thing. I made the salmon pink half of the bottle you see on the marver there for today's piece. We made that this morning, stuck it in the box. It's holding at temperature. We'll pick that up a little bit later. I did include the notch, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Because I'm going to be changing the direction of my encalmo, we have to accommodate the ability to add a blowpipe to that seam. So I'm going to show you a little trick that I learned years ago from a local artist on how to make that happen. But yeah, we'll get to that a little bit later in the process as we get ready for G's multicolor overlay.
All right, looks like Helen's got the temperature and heat back into that. We'll be doing the overlay in just a moment. So again, we're going to make the encalmo is the 2 bubbles that are joined together. And the platter that I make today has the center of the center of the rondelle of the platter is all the bright colors. And so that's one bubble, that's what we'll be making first, and then later on in today's demonstration, we'll make the black band, join them together to make the final piece.
Now, the other thing that's interesting about what G is doing, and part of why he has to marbleize the way he does, because he's making a pattern, he has to think inside out. If I were to take the marbleizing that I do and I spin it out into a platter, the inside of it would be pure white, as you see in some of these pieces, and the marbleization would be on the downside of the platter. But because G wants to be able to see that beautiful marbleized color in the center of the plate, he'll make it so that he's building it on clear. The marble is good all the way through the entire vessel, where mine is visible from the outside only, and it does affect the vessel you choose to make out of what you've marbleized. Now, the other thing I want to point out too, and G's going to show you this here in a minute, again, for the non-glass blowers, when we marver, this is a tool. This is a casting marver. You can see this big thick top. We can actually ladle big chunks of molten glass in here. But whenever we start on this edge of the table close to us and we end up closer to you, the audience, we're pushing glass on the pipe, which he's going to be doing now. Later, you'll see us start here on the far side and marver back toward ourselves. We're pulling that glass off the iron into what we call usable territory. So you'll see those little key on what we're doing. It looks like we're just kind of randomly rolling on a table. We're not. We're utilizing that tool to get the glass to do what we want it to do.
Just had a question online about how long is that color bar good for? Like, does it go bad, or how long can you have it around for? And so, for example, I've got a piece of color bar that was given to me by an old professor. I guess I shouldn't call him old, but he is. Steve Edwards. Maybe he's tuned in. Maybe he'll watch this. Steve Edwards, our college professor. It was a color bar that he made, back in probably the early 80s. And it's a beautiful blue. I still have it. I used a chunk of it one time. He gave it to me in college. Now, this was about 20 years he gave it to me. So this is a 40-year-old piece of color bar now, and I've still got it at home. I'm saving it for just the right piece, and I know that it's going to be just as beautiful as the day that he melted it in that pot that he had down in North Carolina years
I actually have a bar I pulled out of the color pot at the studio when I was there over probably 15 years ago now. So we were emptying a pot out, going to make a new color. I liked it, pulled it out, marvered. And if you look at Kugler and Reichenbach, one of them, Reichenbach still gathers their color by hand, marver the bar by hand, and then break them off and put them in an annealer. Kugler bars, you can tell the Kugler bar, they're smaller diameter and they're machine extruded, so they're very uniform and in their diameter and their length. But the Reichenbach bars are very ununiform in every sense of the word, except the consistency of their color.
I was lucky enough to be in Auckland, New Zealand, go down and check out the Gaffer factory a few years back, and they were actually doing that same thing, Carl. They had a color pot full of, I believe it was wine red at the time, and they were gathering it out. They had two gentlemen that would just kind of gather it up, take a few gathers, roll it out into a perfect bar, put it into a kiln to cool slow, and then go right back in, gather up, and do it again.
That's got to be a long day.
Yeah, it was only, they were able to empty the pot very quickly, a couple of hours. They had the whole furnace completely empty it and rolled into bar, and then filled the furnace back up that night to do it again tomorrow.
Now, when you talk about saving parts and using them later, one of the reasons, one of the things I do in the process of marbleizing this half of this vase, we will create these little half-moon shaped chips in the process of marbleizing, and if you pick those up later on, that's where this color combo comes from. So this is what I refer to as a second generation marbleized vessel. It's made entirely of the leftover scraps from the first round. So you'll see us create them, and I'll point it out when we do it. But those got saved, and I've got chips from that go back 8, 10, 12 years, just saving them ready again to be used on a new vessel.
Yeah. Yeah, look at that. We've got those nice colors from yesterday, a lot of hyacinth in this one, a little bit of the gold topaz and the amber, and then just a touch of gold ruby and pink in there. So I'm excited the way that this turns out. Now again, as Carl kind of mentioned earlier, right now we're looking at the outside of the vessel, but I'm almost more concerned about what's inside, because that'll be the part that shows up once we spin the platter out. Looks like we've got a fun question coming from online.
We've got the age-old, can you cook in a reheat chamber? Can you roast a chicken? You can, but you have to be fast. You have to know whether you want it rare, medium, or well done before it goes in, because if you take the time to decide while it's in there, it's going to be well done.
I'll just use my oven at home.
Yeah, it's easier.
Can we switch the boot out? Yeah, thanks.
Here.
before I take the next.
So one of the things we want to
gathering
point
list.
out, and G is bringing it up now, we're going to switch to the end of it. For those experienced glass blowers, you're going, wait a minute, nobody's blown any glass. They haven't put their mouth on the end of the pipes as we've done for well over 2,000 years.
Cool,
Back when the COVID pandemic hit and we knew we were coming back from the short time that we were off, we got together as a team and decided we couldn't. The museum decided they wanted us all to wear masks all day, the entire staff, hot glass show included. And so we thought, well, we can't be taking our masks off to blow on the pipe. We shouldn't be training those pipes. So we got together as a team and developed what we call the alternate inflation device. I like to call it the automated assistant. You're going to see G hook that up to the pipe here in a second. It is a solenoid, a pressure regulator, an air line, a back pressure valve, a pressure release valve, this hose, this coupler, and a foot pedal, all connected in a sequence of events so that we can just step on the pedal. Now the pedal's down out of sight where you can't see it, but it moves around the floor. Some of us are left-footed, some of us are right-footed, but we can tap that pedal and you'll see this bubble start to grow. I do want to point out for the glass blowers in our audience, if you're interested in this, the studio at the Corning Museum of Glass put their design online to show how it is sequenced together. So if you want to build one, certainly feel free. It does work. Now, G is a part-time employee here and a full-time local artist. He absolutely loves it because from a production standpoint, it does make things faster, and time is money in any kind of craft or hand-oriented construction kind of business. And so as demonstrating artists, we kind of love-hate it. It's allowed us to do things we haven't done in the past. I do think, and Helen, I think Catherine might agree with this, once we go back to the point where we don't have to use it, we're all going to have to learn how to reblow glass the old-fashioned way because we've gotten so used to using this automated assistant.
Helen, you're standing right here. Now, what foot do you like to use? Are you a right-footed pedal pusher, or do you like the left foot?
Depends on the shape, because if I have to lean out, I gotta go left.
It depends on the shape. So if it's a tall piece where you're leaning out, you put it on the left because you kind of naturally stick your left foot out. And if it's a shorter piece...
Problem I find with the left foot is that's your brake foot. And as it's blowing up, if you think you want to stop and you step on the brake foot, it's going to keep getting bigger.
I've definitely had a few moments where I touched it a little too long.
Well, we were talking about the other day, and I was explaining to the audience, and I had it hooked up to the pipe, and I think it was Helen had taken a reheat for me, and I almost stepped on it while she was reheating, which could have been catastrophic because it would just blow up in the oven. So it's down to about 1.5 pounds of air, so we're not feeding a lot of air, but it does really give us, it doesn't give us the biofeedback that you get manually blowing on the pipe, but it does in fact allow us to blow up glass.
I usually push the pedal when it's not connected. That's what I normally do.
Great question about annealing color bars. For the non-glass blowers in the audience, annealing simply means to cool down properly, and it happens in these big black ovens you see called annealers, and it allows us to cool glass from the inside out. If you don't, as the surface cools faster than the core, it'll contract faster, and that'll cause glass to crack or split. Now, if you're an experienced glass blower and you understand cane, if we take a bit of glass and we gather it up and we stretch it to the length of the sage to where it's down to about the size of a number 2 pencil and perfectly round, we don't anneal that. The round shape and the small diameter allows it to cool uniformly on the floor. Something of this size, this is about 1 inch, 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches diameter. We definitely will anneal this, and because of the volume of color that's involved, we'll want to anneal this. So when Catherine got done, I don't know if she put it in the annealer or back in the pickup box, but either one, we have a box here, we put color in. We could put the pieces right back in there. When we're done, we'll cool it off slowly. If we don't, when you try to break these, and you can see that G got a really nice clean break here, this was annealed. If you don't, this will shatter into pieces and not be usable. So yeah, good question. We do anneal. Anything over about the size of a number 2 pencil has to be annealed.
All right, so now we're on to the last gather here, making the encalmo cup itself. And so this cup that we were going to make is going to be blown out a little bit. I'll put a jack line in it, just a touch, so we can break it free. And then open up the top and put this into a kiln that I think Carl may have just been talking about to kind of keep it on hold until we're ready to use it. So let's use the heat from the furnace. And if I can find the big jacks, I'll use there.
So we've used this term encalmo a number of times. It is actually an Italian word for an Islamic technique, but it means to many or married bubbles. So You can see the platter, that was 2 different patterns put together. The vase was 2 different patterns putting together. You can see we've got a small blue bowl here on the front of the stage from our regular shows that is 2 different patterns that are put together. You can put as many patterns together as you want. There is a traditional horizontal encalmo, and you'll see G go through this process. It can go as, you could make a vase, you could make a bowl, you can spin it all the way out into the plate and giving you that band and that ring and that center pattern. Again, we could add 6 or 8 or 10 different cups and make that 6 or 8 or 10 different bands around the outside. And then we've got a process called reverse axis. So this too was 2 bubbles, but what we'll do is we'll put a hole in each of the 2 cups, a notch, and you can see it on our drawing here. And then when we go to put the 2 cups together, we'll simply line the notch up, and later in the process, we can put a pipe, blowpipe, down over that hole. That'll change our direction and continue to allow us to inflate the piece. So, encalmo, E-N, some people spell it E-N-C-A-L-M-O, some people spell it I-N-C-A-L-M-O. We've been debating that here for the last week. I don't know which is the proper way the Italians would spell it.
Now we're just keeping with 2 encalmo cups, and George did his Bring the Heat demo. George had, boy, how many, oh, he was just here. I was going to ask him how many encalmo cups he had on his. I think he had 8.
8 or 10 or 12, and then he reversed the axis 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, he's just trying to show us all up. This is a beautiful Bring the Heat demo. If you Google George Kennard on the YouTube there, the CMOG website, CMOG YouTube, you'll see that. Helen, would you mind making the punty, please? Thanks. This will be on YouTube later on. Obviously, it's live streaming at the moment, but you'll see it on YouTube later on, along with all the other featured Bring the Heat demos. I think one thing that their museum is doing different these days is they're actually selling these demonstration pieces. So for years, people have always asked, are these pieces that we make for sale? Well, if you've wanted to buy one, I've got
So we had an online question, G, about color.
They will be.
In the hospital zone. So I think we got to explain, first of all, what the hospital zone on the pipe is.
I don't even know what that is.
That part of the pipe that's hot, and then that little bit of color. I think it just comes in the overlay process that was pushed all the way onto the pipe. You really want your color to travel onto the pipe so you have control. If you do an overlay and you don't come all the way up onto what we call the moil, as you go to stretch the glass, the clear glass will stretch and your color will pull off into usable territory. Now you can see G's done an excellent job when he breaks this free. There's very little color on the pipe, so very little waste. Anything left on the pipe is wasted glass. So
now because this one is pretty thick, we're actually applying a little bit of water early just to help chill it and break it free. Ellen will bring over the punty, you can see a nice big punty here. A little hotter than you might want for a finished vessel punty, but we need it to hold on while we're making this fairly heavy cup. And that little bit of water should help it cool down early. And now when we put a little bit more water on there, it should break free fairly clean and hopefully nice and easy. So.
Now, if you're doing encalmo cups, this is a critical phase. Most people tend to leave this too warm. And then when you go to break it free, it doesn't break off there cleanly. It wants to separate. Just like that, we got a good clean separation off that iron. Sneak behind you, Helen. There. So you can really see minimal amount of wasted color of that color cup that he built there. The rest of this is clear. Now, for those of you who don't understand the hospital zone, we affectionately call this part of the pipe the hospital zone. There's a kind of a general rule in the hot shop. If it's shiny, you can touch it. If it isn't, you should always, without fail, assume that it's hot. And you can imagine with that glass being, it's not moving, so the glass is well over 1,100 degrees, but that pipe's going to be, 1,000 degrees or better. So.
Well, Carl, I should be able to open this up in, I would hope, just one heat. Do you want to get your
We are going to get
next
started. So, Catherine, you want to grab these 3 colors right there, side by side, and marv them up into an overlay.
All right, so I've got my colors mixed up, overlaid. Got 2 gathers on top of it. Broke it free. We're on the punji. So now I'm going to open up the top of the cup. And on the screen, you can see that opening that was left behind. Right now, it's quite small, maybe, I don't know, a couple inches, 1.5 inches or so big. But we're going to make it probably 7 inches or so, 6, 7, 8 inches. I don't have a predetermined size on this, so we're just going to open it up until it's got a nice shape, a nice form. Looks like Helen's ready with the wooden paddle there, the wooden board. We're going to board it back, add a little bit of thickness, and try to make a nice even thickness throughout the encalmo cup. I don't want one part of it to be thicker than the other. Fairly even from the very tip all the way through to the lip. So I'm gonna get it just a little hotter, I think. Again,
In the meantime, Catherine's starting to pick up the first of my 3 colors to do my multicolor overlay onto my white bubble, and then by the time G is done, we'll be able to show you the process where I marbleize right on the iron. So speeding things along and realizing that some of the setup stages take time as we prep for the fun stuff.
Oh, it's all fun. All right, we've got this pushed back. Now, some people have different theories on the shape of their encalmo cups, whether they kind of bend in a little bit. Can you just board the lip real light for me?
Yeah, some people make a kind of a 2-part Tylenol capsule, which is what I'll do. I've seen some people that do more of 2 halves of a football stuck together. It's personal preference what you're trying to do with it afterwards. The other thing I want to point out too is scale. G. Brian is not going to gather over the cups that he's making, so he's built his volume and his scale into the 2 encalmo cups. I am going to gather over mine once it's assembled, so my cups will be a little smaller, and then once we get things ironed out, seams taken care of, we'll gather a thin layer over that to give me a larger volume vessel.
See some of the inside colors. They look pretty sharp. The outside looks good, but yeah, the inside looks real nice. Yeah, I want to see a little more. Cool. Thanks.
Could you use a different material?
Yeah, that's going to be great. I'm really happy with that.
Could we use a different material for the blowpipe? These are all stainless steel, and if you own a stainless steel pot or pan at home, you'll know that that'll always be clad on the bottom with either copper or
Right behind you,
aluminum.
Carl.
Stainless steel is an extremely poor conductor of temperature. If you build a frying pan out of it, it doesn't heat evenly, but by adding aluminum or copper to the bottom of that pan, we can even out that pan's ability to distribute heat. Now, the other big reason we use stainless steel pipes here at the museum is if you use mild steel or iron pipes, they rust, and then your hands get all dirty from the rust, and it's hard to get rid of that. So you can use mild steel or iron pipes, and you'll see those a lot in production work, and the big advantage to those is when you're done with a piece, you can go over to a barrel, take a tool, knock all the glass off the end, take that same pipe that's still warm, gather over it, and begin the process all over again. So one glass blower can use one pipe all day. We have to put these in that stand you see there that's enclosed, what we refer to as a crack-off bin, because the only way to get that glass off the stainless steel is for them to expand and contract separately. As they cool down and contract, there comes a point when they'll shatter apart as they're contracting at different rates. So that's the big downside, I think, to stainless steel. The other thing with stainless steel pipes is, in a grand scheme of things, stainless is a relatively soft steel, so they bend easy. So we do a little bit more maintenance on our pipes to make sure they stay straight, and you have to be a little more conscious of that as you're actually using the pipe. But yeah, mild steel pipes are very common and were used for many, many years in the production environment, glass blowing.
I don't know about you, Helen or Catherine. Do you have a preference whether you like the stainless ones that are fairly smooth and shiny, or maybe the steel ones that have a little more grip? Do you have a preference? Helen likes the stainless in general. She said it's a little cleaner. Catherine's very specific. She says stainless with a rubber grip. Yeah, that rubber grip gives you a little more turn. Yeah, I think all 4 of us will second that.
I will say, G, I've seen people that are making really big work. A lot of times will go to mild steel pipes and punnies because the rust gives them grip on the pipe as things get bigger, so that can help. Although we're seeing more and more kind of machine neural textures on big pipes too.
Thanks.
To give grip.
No thanks. Yeah, each their own, so that's good. Keep our pipe makers busy. We're using mostly Spiral Arts pipes here. I see a couple of Steiner pipes. The pipes that we're using made right here in the USA, so good on that. Yeah, so he's going to overlay that. Catherine's got the colors on here all mixed up and pretty much ready for an overlay, and so that she'll get it nice and hot. And just like I overlaid the color, Carl will do the same. He'll overlay the colored glass on the white bubble to create his marbled mix and pattern, where I pre-mixed it, then once I had that mix, overlay it onto the bubble. So couple different techniques here for you folks to even try them out yourself, or maybe when you're out looking at some glasswork later on and you see a piece that's marbled, you might be the CSI investigator. You'll say, I think that was mixed right up on the pipe. That one looks like it was mixed and then applied.
I'm ready whenever you are, Catherine.
Ooh,
Okay.
we've got a comment of a question, an iron worker in the comments, and they want to know, can you combine glass and metal? Well, for the most part, the easy answer is no. It's going to break. They have different, what happens is as the glass cools down, the glass actually shrinks just a touch. And the metal is not going to shrink. So as the glass and the metal are combined and they cool, they're going to actually shatter and break apart from each other. So the glass will generally break. Now there's exceptions to every rule. Albert Paley was here. Albert Paley, a wonderful sculptor, came down and did a residency with Corning Incorporated and then here at the museum. And he was combining a metal called Kovar with a specific type of glass. And those two, metal and glass, were combined with the same coefficient of expansion, meaning that you could encapsulate the one with the other. It's actually an old technique from the 50s, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but it was actually used to put together televisions. And so he used that technology in a neat, modern way, and he created some beautiful glass sculptures. The museum actually has one.
Now, there are some precious metals that you can combine as well. We can use gold, we can use silver, you can use copper, and the other one that's very commonly used in production glass blowing is platinum. I know when Steuben was in this building, their machine that melted and stirred their glass, a lot of those parts were platinum as they were able to mix those two together. Some of my favorite Steuben pieces involve the little platinum seal and the platinum fish down inside the iceberg. So there are some metals that work.
We should lobby for a couple of bars of platinum to work with.
We should.
Yeah. I don't know how well that's going to go over. Catherine, what do you think? Probably not. Yeah, we're getting a negative response on that. Well, it never hurts to ask, right?
So we've got our second overlay. Again, there were 3 drops of color in this, probably 1.5 inch chunks of color bar. Catherine got them nice and hot, shaped them into an overlay. I always tell the person that's doing that they don't have to mix them up, but they also don't have to go out of their way to make sure they stay separate. And then we're going to do this same overlay. Get it hot, use a little centrifugal force to try to spin this open, and then just the act of holding it straight up in the air, you can see that color start to flow down around the white. And then this is where that Marver technique of pushing away from you gets that glass to roll down onto the white bubble. And then I'm going to marbleize my bubble. If you want to get ready, Helen, we are good to go. So when I do this, I'm going to tweeze it 3 times each process, trim them off, and I'm going to get it hot enough that we can start to reach in and pull up on some of that white. And then this is where those bits will get reused. So we just squeeze into the white, squeeze into the color, and then Helen will catch them, and we'll use these in another vessel later in the process. It's 100% pure color, no reason to waste it. And like I said this morning, I think we're going to do this 15 times. It sounds like a lot, but the more times you manipulate that color and squeeze the colors together and pull that white up through, the more actual, what I would refer to as veining in the glass. Now, I spent most of my life as a general contractor and a builder, and so I put in a lot of marble, and one of the things that I like about this technique is it duplicates that true veining that you see in marble, where you get those white streaks pulled up through the color. When I first started doing this, I would do each vessel a couple, 3, 4 times, and then you realize, I don't know that you can do it too much. The more you do, the more streaking and overlaying and twisting of those colors. And I've seen hybrid processes in between. We had a young gentleman by the name of Tom Ryder a couple weeks ago do his Bring the Heat demo, and he tweezes the same way I do, but rather than trim away the excess, he pulls it around and sticks it back to the vessel somewhere else, so you get a little more kind of streaking and reapplying of that color over the top.
Yeah, Yeah, we've had a lot of different styles of mixing the color lately, it seems like. All the different Bring the Heat demos, glass artists getting to use their kind of fun color palette here. So we definitely encourage everybody to check out the different Bring the Heat demos on YouTube.
Now this is going to create a lot of three-dimensional texture on my bubble, and like we talked with G's earlier, as you fold the glass, you have to pay attention to the trapments of air. Any air we get in here is in fact going to have to come out at some point. So before I'm done with this, we will take and completely marver and block this back to being perfectly smooth. One more round.
Now you said you do count how many you do, and it looks like you do 3 per layer.
Correct.
You really try to cut into that white a little bit, pulling up, cutting some of that white so the white exposes into the...
Definitely. And you've got to get it hot enough to get that white hot. And then the other thing you have to be careful is once we start to block this back together, make sure you don't shut the bubble off. But you want a fair amount of white, a fair amount of color, because we want to make this vessel good size in the end. And then we want to manipulate up through that. So
it doesn't, watching you do this, Carl, it doesn't look like you start at the top or start at the bottom and work your way in the one or the other. Looks like you kind of randomly move throughout the bubble, double cutting some of the cuts.
And I am looking to start to see the white streaks of that white having been pulled up through. So that's like you were looking for the folds and the transparent color starting to show that it's got some white behind it. I do the same thing. I'm looking for those white streaks. I'm looking actually in the pieces that Helen's catching to see that there's some white in those as well.
Gotcha.
That lets me know I'm getting hot enough to dip into that bubble.
Are the first ones that you cut kind of more difficult then, or the...
They
the
are,
last
because you're
ones?
not seeing that white quite yet.
Gotcha. So a lot of the ways when I was talking about looking at, when I was mixing the color and blending it, just making sure that I could see some of that transparent color come out, you're almost doing the exact same thing here.
Exact same thing.
In a very different way. Cool. Great. Now, Amanda, there's lots of different ways that the folks here could follow us on social media. Would you mind just telling everybody where everybody could find the museum on different social media pages? What different pages could they find us on?
We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all under Corny Museum, and you can follow us on YouTube at Corny Museum of Glass.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks so much, Amanda. Yeah. All right. So, Carl, have you ever closed down, like getting the glass so hot, has it ever closed down on you and you lose the bubble, or maybe you get it too thin while you're doing it and you end up with a real thin spot that's kind of a disaster
it's
later
very
on?
possible. So I'm compacting it down well at this point, trying to make sure there's no texture, and you can see I've reattached the hose, and this time we're going to just start to puff things back up to make sure we've maintained that center core bubble. Anytime you manipulate a bubble, it's very easy to get them kind of shut off.
But someone's asking about uranium glass, and I think Carl...
Someone's asking about uranium glass. Yeah, actually, Carl does collect a little bit of uranium glass.
I do. What is commonly referred to as Vaseline glass from the Depression era, the mid to 1920s, well into the 50s. Some of that was made. It was the first kind of mass-produced press glass in this country. There are hundreds of different patterns available from about 40 original manufacturers. A few of them are still available today, Anchor, Hawking, and stuff like that. The companies are around. I have personally about 15 different Depression-era patterns, and then I've started collecting unique dishes in Vaseline glass. Now, true Vaseline glass will fluoresce under a black light because the oxide to make it is uranium oxide. We have some of it here at the museum. You're certainly welcome to come in and look at it. It's gorgeous, and I just acquired about a year ago a beautiful two-headed elephant bowl, and when you look at it, it's 28-sided bowl, elephant heads, tusks, the whole 9 yards. I still to this day can't figure out how they get it out of the mold in one piece and not lose the tusks and some of the other stuff that's involved.
Yeah. One of the neat things about that uranium piece the museum has is the museum has a Geiger counter next to it, and it ever so slowly just ticks away. They said it's not dangerous, but...
No, we did our glass barge event a couple years ago. We
That
were
was a
in
lot of fun. The summer of
Canada
2018.
found a beautiful antique shop and bought 4 beautiful Vaseline wine glasses that were just absolutely gorgeous.
You can see Carl's hands turning, winding as he gathers this next layer of glass. And then Carl, is this one gather on top, is this enough for you to make your encalmo cup?
This is enough for the cup. As I said earlier, I'm going to gather over both cups, so I got to make sure I don't get these 2 cups very large, or things start to get out of hand in a hurry. So definitely keep these 2 kind of moderate sized, roughly the same proportion, I should say. And then we'll, when we're attached, the seams sealed up, we'll gather over the whole thing, a very thin coat, just to help make sure we have the volume necessary to make the size vessel we want to make.
Very cool. So another difference between the 2 vessels that we're making, not just the way that we put the encalmos together, and not just the way that we do the marbling, is that once I have the encalmos together, I do not gather. I gather all the glass that I need before I make the encalmos, where Carl makes the encalmos a little smaller, then adds 1 layer of glass on top. Looks like Amanda's getting some nice pictures for our social media, as she described earlier, where you can see these pictures, these videos, and follow us. Is there a specific glass that mimics how opal looks? You know, that's a good question. I'm not sure. Catherine's saying that there was a... Catherine, you want to chime in on the microphone here? She has a bit of inside information that we'd all love to hear.
You can start a punting.
Well, this kind of goes along with that one question about old color. So there's a color company, Zimmerman, they don't make it anymore. And they made this really beautiful opaline. And it was probably the closest you could get to sort of an opal or a moonstone. And it's really beautiful, and I'm saving it as well.
Ooh.
For a special piece.
So you've got a piece also tucked
I
away.
have a few pieces.
A few
I bought,
pieces.
Yeah, I think I bought 5 or 6 bars when they were shutting down.
Oh, wow. You know, I bought a couple bars of their cobalt blue as they shut down. I think they made the Z66 some of the nicest cobalt blue that you've ever seen. Everybody loves cobalt blue, but this particular cobalt is just gorgeous.
Who was that?
Zimmerman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they make a beautiful, beautiful. They made some beautiful colors. And not available anymore, so
Nope.
hold on to them or use them wisely. All right, looks like they're on to the punty part as well. Helen making this next transfer pipe, the punty. And then, so Carl, when do you want us to turn up the pickup box? We've got the pickup box at 905 degrees, and generally when we pick these cups up, we like them a little hotter, closer to
We could probably
1,000.
start to run it up now, because we
Run it
just
up right
got
now?
plenty of this, open it, get that
Okay.
notch in it, and we're good to go.
right.
Yeah, give me a second. I got to cool this down a little bit, and then we're ready to go. Again, we were talking about breaking these cups free. It's very common to get these too hot. And then when you go to break them off, they don't separate. They get gooey and stretch. So
Carl, I put the box at 1020. Does that work for you? You like it hotter or
yeah,
colder?
that totally works good.
1020? Okay.
My cup's a lot smaller than yours, so I think, you know, I'm not as worried about the shock. I'm thinner and just physically smaller.
What did I pick mine up at yesterday?
1050, I think.
Was it 1050? Okay. Kind of a little inside information for these Bring the Heat demos, a little background. Normally what we do is we'll practice, we'll do kind of a dress rehearsal, if you will, a dry run on these pieces to, you know, kind of get the kinks out.
Thank you,
We've got about a
Catherine.
2-hour window, and so if we do a practice run and we realize, wow, that was 2.5 hours, we need to skim a little time off, and that's what happened with ours. We just ran, it was only maybe, what, Carl, 10 minutes over or
I think
something?
so, 9 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, 9 or 10 minutes over. So a nice chance for the team to work together, kind of get what we need, and then realize all the things like that. We forgot the one time I didn't quite bring out the rollers. I forgot the rollers. We'll use those at the end. So now, of course, today we've got them out. And just a nice run through. These are pieces that we don't normally make or haven't made in years. They're a lot of fun to make. There's lots of different parts and components and simple things easy to forget, like bring out the big block, bring out the rollers. And that dry run rehearsal really helps out. So you're
That's
seeing
what's really nice about this Bring the Heat demo, especially for either novice, beginner, or even experienced glass blowers. Just the simple act of watching other people make glass. A lot of times you can see a technique or a process that you hadn't seen before, or maybe it's a process that you do, but you do in a slightly different way. So What's nice about this program, on please.
Yeah, opening that cup right up. And then Carl took a measurement of the cup that's already pre-made. So we pre-made the one encalmo cup, and we have a measurement with a pair of calipers, a nice measuring device. So now he knows the exact size to make this next cup so that when he joins them together, they'll fit pretty smoothly, they'll fit fairly evenly. You won't have one that's way too big or way too small. Little wiggle room.
Again, you want to open these, I think, relatively slow. You don't want to open them too fast. You don't want to stretch the color any more than we have to. Helen is actually pushing toward the pipe a little bit for me, thickening that edge up. I'm going to check it now to see kind of where we need to be. We're close. We'll bring it back in a little and get rid of that kind of double lip we got going.
So Carl, you say you open yours up kind of slow and easy.
Yep.
Where when I did mine, I just ripped it right open.
Rip it right open.
I got another different ways.
Yep.
Same, hopefully similar results anyway. Whatever you're comfortable doing, take your time and do it that way. Don't feel rushed because you saw somebody at the Corning Museum, do it one way and it works better for you another way. Don't feel like you have to do it or get locked into one particular style. It's a nice thing about watching so many different glass makers, and of course here on the videos on YouTube, even visiting your own independent shops near, taking classes, you'll see lots of different ways to approach.
Push a little bit and get rid of that
Same
little bit of
problem.
round that's there, and then we'll put our notch in it.
So Carl, your encalmos, you'll switch the axis as well. You'll join the two bubbles, but then
Correct.
attach a blowpipe on that seam to get the line, the encalmo line, to run straight up and down, as opposed
And that's
to
where this notch comes into play.
horizontal.
We have to be able to add a blowpipe. We have to be able to get air into that bubble once we've changed it from two punty irons to the blowpipe. The technique I'm using, I actually learned from a local artist by the name of Alex Brand. Big shout out to Alex. Did all of his encalmos this way. He said it was predictable, it was uniform, you're not burning color.
And you'll use the torch to help make that one notch there?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Okay. So to do this notch, we're going to spot heat just one spot on the side of the bubble.
Oh, we better get that encalmo cup out.
Yeah, you can start getting going on that other cup. Get some heat in that. And then this notch can be made with tweezers. It can be made with the stem from your Sophietta. I've just got a little piece of aluminum tubing here. And we'll put this notch right in the side of the bubble. And then we'll heat this. Helen and I will check one more time to make sure it's flat and round. And then G's going to grab that other cup and we're going to adhere it
I'll sneak
right to the
behind you,
end
Carl,
of
and then I'll
here.
grab that cup. Yeah, probably. All right, I'm coming in. I've got the encalmo cup that we made a little earlier.
Okay. Yeah,
Now this
nice
one
and
already-
round. Got a decent sized little notch in that.
You've got a nice notch in yours. This
Yeah.
one's already pre-notched. Carl, did you talk about the bubbles? This one has some bubbles in it.
I did not talk about this cup. This is salmon pink, one of my favorite colors. It is one of the gold-based colors. We're going to do a price check to make sure we're close. Oh yeah, we're good.
Okay, great.
G will stabilize his punty, and then we're going to start to heat just the face of both of these cups. But that has a bubble pattern. Used a mold. It has a number of names. Some people call it a bubble mold. Some people call it a pineapple mold. The Italians call it a balloting mold. But it's diamond facet mold you'll hear very often.
That's the one I like.
But as you go into the mold, it creates pyramidal indents in the glass. And then when you gather over those indents, each one of them will trap a perfectly matched pattern of Corning New York air forever and ever and ever. So that's what's half of that. I don't know if it shows on the vase that's on the Marver or not, but bubble patterns are gorgeous. I love bubbles in glass. Some people don't, but I think they're absolutely amazing. Matter of fact, I was digging out my marble tools the other day from one of our glass blowers, and I came across what I call a pin marver just for making random patterns of bubbles. So I should bring that in and we can play with that some more too.
Carl, I'm ready whenever you are.
Let me flash
ready.
this
You're
whole
gonna
thing and we'll
flash
do
the
it.
guy. Yep, this is got a nice temperature in it. Now when we join these together, we'll preheat the lips a little bit more than the rest of the body. Sometimes people overheat them. I tend to put them together a little bit
You can
colder.
start that collar, Helen, and we'll be in good shape. You got tweezers, G?
Yeah.
You do. Okay, we'll start with notches down, flip the notches up. Now, some people will do this straight on as I'm doing it. Other people will do it bottom first.
There it is.
Just like that, we've got our reverse axis encalmo complete with hole for blowpipe.
Yay!
Yeah, halfway through the process. Now I'm going to take and marver the sides of this, get this little kind of Tylenol capsule straightened up. Helen is going to make a collar. It'll be hollow out the center. We do need to get air into this bubble eventually. And it needs to be fairly wide and flat. And we'll work that onto the sides of this bubble right over the hole. She is going to make sure, and this is kind of a trick for the novice glass blowers out there, make sure that the head of the pipe sticks forward of the face of the collar. That way we can make sure that that actually contacts the side of this bubble and we're adhered to the bubble, not just the clear glass around that collar.
Yeah, it's nice having that hole in there too. If the two bubbles were sealed together completely at this point, as you're heating it now, that hot air would expand and kind of push the hot spots out, making them a little bit thin. Those thick spots would stay thick. You'd repeat the process. That hot spot in the middle would get hotter and hotter and thinner. So this little opening here just kind of helps ensure that the colors stay nice, the thickness stays appropriate, and it gives you that spot already set for that switched axis for the blowpipe collar that needs to be attached. So, and you said that Alex Brand taught you this?
Yes, the
All
making
right,
of
big
the
shout
cups.
out to Alex Brand then.
Seen him do that thousands of times, and it just made sense, and it's quick, it's clean. The other option is to just take a hot torch, take that seam and burn a hole in it, use your tweezers, but sometimes colors can burn, distorts the colors, it's hot on your fingers to create that hole in the side of the bubble and stuff like that. This is already done, ready to go. I can reiterate it with my tweezers if I'm worried about it not being big enough. May do that right here, just to make sure that that is good to go. Got lots of hole there. And I'm ready whenever you are, Helen. So Helen's made this collar. It's on a standard size pipe. We're not going to go real big with this piece. We're going to gather over at one thin time. Again, we'll let the piece fall off center. I'm going to go straight up. We'll line that collar that she has right down onto the hole. She's going to run that all the way around, make sure that glass attaches all the way around. And then we're going to put just a little bit of water on this punty. I'll have you turn down toward you. And ready? Just like that, we're attached and we've got that reversed on the pipe.
Well done, well done. A nice job by Matt up in the AV booth, getting all the right camera angles so everybody online there could see everything that was happening. Fantastic job up in the AV booth today.
So this is where the shape of making good encalmos kind of haunts you. This shape is not good to gather over, so we've got to start to round this up and get things back together on the pipe here. So we'll get this pretty warm. We'll start to rock the two halves, start to point it up. We'll end up in a block, get this down to a bubble shape, and then we will gather over this one thin time and then blow out a relatively simple vessel. In the meantime, G Thank's going to get started on doing his outside trim ring cup.
Yeah, I'll get that started. Our timing should be pretty good. I don't remember exactly what the timing was, but I know I start that right about now. And by the time you get done with your vessel, we'll be ready to put the other two encalmo cups together. So Carl's got that interesting shape. Now, when he did this last time, thanks, Catherine. Catherine's going to heat up the black color for me. And then, so as Carl made this practice piece last time on Monday, a couple of days ago, we were talking a lot about how the color, how the color of the cups really affect right now as he heats it. And sometimes, you know, the one color might be really hot, and so it'll stretch and smush and heat and bend a little more. It's a little more malleable. And then the other cup stays fairly cold and rigid. And if you can see it on the marble, the side that's glowing more, that side's going to be a little more malleable. It's going to change its shape a little faster, a little easier. That's not easy overall, though, because the other side, Carl has to be conscious that the one side also changes shape at the same time. So, again, at this point, Carl talked a little bit about building up that heat, slowly working the cups together. You can't overheat it at this point. A stitch in time saves 9. If you go too fast, you'll end up starting from scratch.
And we'll use a block to do a lot of the shaping. I'm just trying to lose a little of that Tylenol shape now, get it back more so it's more block ready, and then we'll get it down to a bubble that we can gather over.
Carl, I've heard you mention Tylenol a couple of times. You take many Tylenols?
I haven't today.
Good. Glass making, a lot of times we do get questions about glass making, about, tennis elbow, about glass blower's eye, they call it, carpal tunnel. And any activity that you do that's strenuous on your body, of course, you want to take good care of your body, not just eating right, but staying hydrated. That's probably the number one thing as a glass maker. You always want to take care of your body, stay hydrated, and you're in it for the long haul, not just for the one piece. Think about your future. All right, so I've gotten the clear glass for the overlay. Catherine Ayers heating up that black glass that we'll use for the rim of the encalmo. This is where, again, we'll start that bubble with our new automated inflation
Take that
tool.
bigger block. I think it's, right there on the floor.
This is definitely one of the things I like about this new tool is starting the bubble. You never have to wonder if you got the air trapped in there.
Oh, G's got it over there.
What do you need?
That we're going to borrow that bigger block for a quick second.
Oh, great. So just tap on that pedal to start the bubble.
And we mentioned this the other day, in a production environment where we're not constrained on time, we might block this an extra 8, 10, 12 times. We might marver it, just working on that seam between the two encalmo cups. Depends what your level of requiredness, tightness on that seam is. Right now there's a little bit of an outside valley there. Anytime you try to create a 90-degree corner in glass, it's not a true 90. It has a rounded outside edge, and that doesn't seal together. In G's, because he's not gathering over it, it's not going to be an issue. Because we're going to gather over this, if we don't get rid of some of it, it'll want to start to trap air when we do that gather.
Yeah, we did talk about that on Monday quite a bit, didn't we? About how you heat the glass and shape it, and how you might wait in between. Like, for example, Carl might take a half an hour if he was making a piece, and just let the glass really cool down, take a nice heat, shape it, let it cool down again, take another heat, shape it. But by the constraints of this demo, we're going to kind of push forward maybe a little faster than we normally would. So again, if you're at home and you're watching this and you're a glass maker, take your time. Don't rush. If you only make one piece instead of two, make sure that one piece is a grade A, top quality piece. It's better to make one quality piece than two kind of mediocre pieces. Always take pride in your work.
So the blocks are really useful in going from that weird wide football shape back towards something we can gather over. You need a fairly egg shape, Q-tip shape when you're gathering glass that helps control the even coverage of the glass, the distribution of the glass off the end of the iron, things like that. So just going to use this block just to get things nicely back on center.
Now, Carl, will you test for air trap too? I remember last time there was where the seams were, where it connected to the collar, there was a little bit of an opening, and air was actually blowing through that opening. So you put a little dab of glass in that to kind of seal it down.
I think we got this one sealed up.
Fantastic.
We do have a hole right there, so.
Ooh, you can see the colors now.
We got one little side hole where the collar goes on that seam. Helen's going to bring me a little bit of clear glass. We'll seal that up. We're going to go for probably 2 more blocks, get this thing pushed back together. We'll be able to gather over it and go for our final vessel shape.
Great. Just enough to kind of seal it off.
Yeah, there's a little tiny one right there, so.
Right.
It's not uncommon in this shape
Whoops.
to get that.
Thanks. All right, we got our black overlay going. Amanda, are there any questions from online or from the web? It seems like the web's been a little quiet lately.
Yeah, we're in good shape.
Is it hard to find center? I wonder what they mean by that. Like to keep your piece round and even? Oh, or maybe like, yeah, with the encalmo, how you have to join them together and just really hit center and make them perfect. Is that easy to do? No, it's not easy to do at all. The practice piece that I made, the first encalmos that we put together, wow, were they off. I don't even think the one side sealed down and touched to the other. It was almost a disaster. But with a little practice and just kind of sealed it down, you can't even tell on the final piece at all. But again, just kind of practice and patience. And of course, it's not the first time that I've missed center. I've done it before, and so I've got a technique.
Live TV, if it can go wrong, it has.
Bigger the crowd, bigger the disaster. All right, Carl. Do you eat that one more time, or is that you'll gather on that? You'll
Pull
gather
this
on
down
that?
and gather right on this, so.
Cool.
I do need to get this pretty chilly because I got to gather deep. If you're doing these, you want to make sure you gather all the way up onto the moil to seal shut that kind of awkward, clunky seam that we have there. And again, if this were not a show, we might heat that up a couple more times and work that in a little smoother, but we're going to go for it.
Awesome. Oh, I think our timing will work out pretty well. I've got my overlay almost complete. Catherine brought the black glass over to the bubble. I've got the overlay almost complete. I'll take 2 more gathers on this, and I'll be working away on the one side as Carl is working away on the other. 2 pieces during this Bring the Heat demo. A lot of fun. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, for watching, whether it's live now or later in the future. I really do appreciate you taking your time out of your day to watch us have a little fun in the hot shop.
And we do want to also point out these vessels will be for sale in the market at the Corning Museum of Glass. All of the Bring the Heat demos are out there. Certainly encourage everybody to look them up and support the local art community by purchasing glass. Good time to, plus you got to see the piece made. That's been the fun part.
Carl, this might be a fun time to plug your own Instagram. Do you have an Instagram? If
I
people
do
wanna
not.
follow? Oh, you don't have an Instagram?
To me, glass is always, it's been a second career. If you know me, you know I did start out as a glass blower. But I'm here to entertain, educate people, and share the world of glass blowing. I've sold stuff in the market for years, and still my preferred art form is construction. Still do a fair amount of that, and I enjoy it. And this is still just something to do for fun and excitement. So.
Well, that's great. Yeah, Carl does a real nice job on high-end kitchens, bathrooms, framing. If you need a house built from scratch, he might be your guy. Although I don't know if he's going to do any more of those. Carl, you got any plans for any future house building, or maybe only your
one
own
for my
house?
house, one for myself someday. In retirement, I want to do a small one for me. The good news is I know who I can get to make all my lampshades when I do it, G.
Gosh, I hope it's me. Carl, tell you what, why don't you log on to my website, my Instagram, or my Etsy shop at SteubenCountyGlass.com for all your, I guess I don't have them yet, but I will, for all your lighting needs, but I've got other vases, bowls, pitchers, tumblers, all types of glass. Let me know when you start your house. I'll make sure to have the light shades up on my...
There we go. We had a young lady here
Sites.
yesterday who had traveled from Midwest here to the museum. And she works for an artist who has made lamps for years, and they're starting to get into making glass lamps. Whoops, where'd the block go? Nope.
Now, G. Brian, do you have any of these marbled pieces on your Etsy page?
Actually, Catherine, that's great. Yep, I do. If you want to check out there's a link from Instagram, Steuben County Glass, or right on Etsy, Steuben County Glass. You'll see probably about a half a dozen of them still left on there right now. All the different beautiful harmonious colors. I think there's a lot of sunset ones still left. Blue ones, cobalt blue, everybody loves those. I think those ones are gone. The green one's gone, but there's still some beautiful cranberry pink. All the expensive colors are still left. So yeah, check those out. Thanks so much, Catherine. Appreciate that.
So back to using this table. We talked about it earlier. It's a heat sink. Just shaping this bubble, more importantly, cooling this very bottom. We've got to get this hot enough that we can blow it up. And so we need that reservoir that we can inflate into on the bottom of the vessel. And the next step is to think about getting a jack line in this. Jack line's important in every piece. You've seen us put it in all the cups so far that we broke free. Also need to put it in a big vessel. You'll see G put one not only in the rim cup that he's making now, but also, he'll need that for separating the whole piece toward the end of the process. So very important part, the jack line or the neckline to get this thing to break free.
Yeah. I always think it's fun, Carl. Every piece of glass that you see, whether it's a window, a pickle jar, or a beautiful piece of art glass like we're making this afternoon, every piece starts out as a big gob of glass in a furnace, kind of like honey in a honey jar, is gathered out by an artisan, shaped by hand, usually blown by mouth,
Please.
and then cooled down in a kiln. So it's kind of fun that all these different pieces of glass that you see all started out in a furnace, the same temperature as lava in a volcano.
Rotate that pedal. Thanks.
Catherine.
You also see the joy or the difficult part of marbleized vessels is the heat reaction to the colors. The marbleized vessel is going to heat and go a different direction. The salmon pink cup, I'm good. Salmon pink is going to kind of want to go a direction a little more stable than the marbleized colors.
Yeah, it's interesting. You can really see the temperature difference, that bright glow. And then,
Okay,
of course,
you
how
want to take
it's
this and we'll start a jack line.
flattening out a little bit. Carl, is it the side that's hotter or the side that's cooler that usually kind of goes oval on you?
It's the soft marbleized side, just wants to go where it wants to go, has a kind of a mind of its own.
Gotcha.
So we're going to work together to get a jack line in this that's relatively soft. So Helen will take a quick heat. We'll walk up on this kind of slow just to make sure we don't get things too hot.
See some great teamwork between Helen and
Going to have you hang this
Carl.
slightly as we're getting this jack line in there. Doesn't need to be a lot, just needs to be a point at which it will break free.
Oh yeah, you can see it. How the one side actually wants to slide down a little further with gravity. How it's pulling on the other side a little more. All right. Thanks, Catherine.
Okay, I'm going to heat this up and just go for it. Now we've talked about our automated assistant, and the joy of it is dancing around the hose.
Oh yeah. We need a cordless version.
Yeah. If we've invented cordless charging devices, we should be able to come up with cordless air toys.
What's the Amazon thing? You just say their name and then they turn on the lights. Can we do that for blowing?
Yeah. Yeah, we need the Siri attachment. Okay, got the hose again. That's the hard part, it's dancing around that hose.
right, yeah, look at that inflate. Well, one thing I will say about the new foot pedal and the blow hose is it's just so much fun to keep on blowing. You have to almost be a little careful, a little
Yep.
cautious about over blowing.
Okay, so I'm going to stretch this out, and then we are going to cork this. That's how we get the flat vessel shape, is to cork it.
I bet you there's been a lot of people wondering how you make a flat vessel. Normally, you know, they're round. So,
Well, this is where, on this heat, is where you'll really start to see the effect of heat on temperature on the colors. It'll want to start to do some crazy things as we're stretching and inflating and heating.
Thanks, Catherine. So when you're going to stretch it out now, and you'll really see.
Yeah, we're
how
going to
the
start
one
this
side
process of
pulls.
just
Gotcha.
getting some length here, and you'll see this vessel start to do some of its own stuff as those colors are reacting to that movement.
Gotcha. Ooh, should have put my sleeve on. Yeah, I've got a black one over on the other.
I think when we cork it, we'll leave the hose on it, because that helps back pressure it. You don't have to cap it. I'm going to puff it a little bit and then hand it off to you, and we'll begin the process of corking this flat.
Thanks. Yeah, it's just all the steam coming out of that new paper. Thanks, Catherine.
So the same thing, when you bring it to me, put the salmon pink side up, and we'll cork to that, and let's go slow and easy, because it's just a super soft set of colors.
Yeah, All right, you've got those corks out now, huh?
We got the corks out.
Now, on Monday when you did this, you were engulfed in a plume of beautiful white smoke. It was quite angelic.
All right, let's try that. And have you hang it down while we cork it, salmon side up. And we just begin the process of taking what was round and making it flat.
All right, look at that. Beautiful.
Let's heat that again and do that again. Awesome.
Well, you can really see those colors coming out now. Oh, do you need a door? Are you all right? Thank you.
All right. We're going to keep it pretty flat. Might tap it just a little there. Okay, you want to grab a paddle and we'll get it flattened off.
So now you'll just heat the very bottom, Carl? Just the
Yep.
foot? Okay.
And heat just the very bottom. It's funny how you remember different points in your career. One of the first times Helen and I blew glass, we were on a cruise ship together, which is something we did for years. And every time I go into the oven like this, and Helen's in the studio, I can hear her telling me to slow down my turn, because I
Oh.
tend to turn at 100 miles an hour.
The faster you turn, the hotter it gets, right? Friction.
That's it.
One of my friend's professors told them that.
That's probably good right there.
All right, that looks
I'm
good.
going to button that because we're on the softer of the two colors.
Carl, I really like how there's almost a bright white edge
Yeah,
on that, and then
blue
it
that
goes
color
to
blue
dark.
nice and thin, and then these bands are just absolutely gorgeous. Now the green that you see there looks like kind of a light Kelly green, and in fact is almost a black green. It's a color called 8904.
That's
sea
the
green,
sea green, huh? Yeah.
and it's an absolutely gorgeous color. So we're going to add a little bit of extra glass to the bottom of this, just as a way of making sure there's stuff to punty to. Make sure we don't take bits of color when we remove the punty. Go ahead and just paddle that flat. That can be ground away later, so I don't worry too much about it. Yeah, that's fine.
That's just a little patch to protect the bottom and protect
You can
the
start
color.
that punty, and let's do that on a blowpipe again, like we did the other day. We're going to use a blowpipe for a punty. It's, as a technician, a horrible idea. As a glassblower, a beautiful idea. It's wider on the end, so you get more stability, more contact, and easier control. From a technician standpoint, you're forcing glass up the hole in that punty, and it's just harder to maintain good pipes. But
Just because it clogs the pipe.
yeah, it clogs the pipe up, but it's not the end of the world. We can get it. Once we transfer this, we're not going to do much more than heat it. I will swing it a little bit as G's getting close to ready to start putting his two pieces together. So timing-wise, I think we're in good shape. Leave him a half hour to spin out his plate, which should be good, and get his two cups together. Now, he's not changing direction, so we won't have all that reshaping time involved. His two cups are going to be almost the perfect block shape when he gets them together, and he's not gathering over it. So once his cups go together, then he's in finish the vessel mode. We got two cups together, and we were still looking at having to reshape and rechange everything.
Yeah,
Now, we were talking about this the other day. I don't do a lot of large-scale glass blowing, and one of the things I have to consciously be thinking about is the pipe behind me over here. There's enough weight on the glass to pick the pipe up off the bench, and what happens when that happens is you tend to let go, and then when the pipe moves, you tend to grab the pipe and slam it down onto the rail, and it can pop your vessel off. So there's the okay from Helen that she's good to go.
All right, moment of truth.
A little water there. I'll set it right up on the rail. And just like that, we aren't attached to the blowpipe
Yeah,
anymore.
but a nice round
Hey,
of applause.
we're halfway there.
Carl
Thank
and
you.
Helen working flawless as a
Got
team. Fantastic. Now, Carl, from what I remember on Monday, at this point, you spent a lot of time heating the glass and getting that temperature how you wanted it throughout. You opened up the top, kind of boarded it to smooth it out, but then again, just like before, you're going to use a lot of gravity, centrifugal force,
Yep.
and letting that shape almost dictate itself with
Correct.
the color and the heat.
Those
and the temperature.
two different colors. The softer cup will stretch differently than the more stable salmon cup, and it takes and gives you an interesting lip on top. So just letting the glass co-design, as we say, along the way.
Great. So actually, we're both heating up the lips there. I'm on the other side here, heating up the band, the black framing, the black encalmo band for the middle or for the outer edge of the platter. And so I just broke open the tip of the bubble, exposing an opening. I'm heating that. Carl's doing the same thing. He opened up the top of the piece, exposing it open there, and next step, he'll open up the top. I'll do the same thing here.
Just heating that top, probably 1/3. We're going to want that stretch to come from that part, maintaining overall temperature on everything that's involved, and then just backing off and concentrating on that top 1/3. Turning too fast, as I always do. Now, you also have to be careful with a punty on a piece like this, because you can torque it off the end of the iron. I got some crunchies on the rail here I got to get rid of. There we go. So we're just going to open this. You can paddle that flat. I'm good on my arm. All right, let's just start swinging.
Could you grab me the calipers? Thanks. Hey.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, and the question is, are there any tips for your encalmo platter not having any ridges on the inside? Are you talking a ridge from must be a ridge from where the two plates come together, or where the two bubbles come together. Well, that's a good question, and I guess the answer is that you really have to ensure that the cups go together evenly. Yeah, on there, please. So they need to be, both the encalmo cups need to be the same size and same thickness. Then once you have them, yeah, push please. Once you have them together perfectly, you need to take a couple of nice reheats. Okay, that's good. And really smooth it out, getting an even temperature throughout. So again, this is the importance of having those cups the same, not just same size, but the same thickness. Because if the one cup is quite a bit thicker than the other cup, you're gonna really feel where it goes from thick to thin, and those ridges too will become more apparent. Something when people put their cups together, the lips on them kind of fold in a little bit, or the lips pull out. For me, I try to have those lips exactly the same, nice and level, nice and straight all the way through. That'll help eliminate it. But look at Carl, look at that beautiful piece when he swings it out. That looks gorgeous.
Just letting those colors do what they want to do right there at the top is really nice. You can see that softer set just turns to one side. All right, let's flash this thing down.
Can you bump the kiln? Can you bump the kiln? Thank you. Yeah, 1040, I think maybe.
Now, a bunch of the novice intermediate glassblowers out there and experienced glassblowers will understand this, but I tend to put things away too fast. And what happens is this will lay on its side because we'll have to cold work the bottom later. And if it's soft enough, it'll lay on a piece of insulation called fiberfrax, and that'll create a texture in the glass. So we really want to take our time, get this cooled down on top, but in the meantime, we have to make sure that our bottom temperature is coming up slightly so that when we go to break this punty off, we don't break the bottom of the vessel, which can happen at this point. Anything can happen. It's in the process of putting a piece of glass away. So we're just going to let that top cool down, start to bring some temperature up here a little bit.
Yep, makes a lot of sense, Carl. Don't rush at the end. You've got lots of time and energy into the piece. Take your time at this point. It's critical. Make sure it's done right.
Gorgeous striping up that side into the purple. All right, Helen, this will be last flash.
Thank you. We could make mine just a smidge bigger.
Looks like we're a good timing. Leave G a half hour to put his platter together. We're in great shape.
It only takes me a half hour?
Last time it took you a little less than that, actually.
Oh, wow. Cool.
All right, so Helen's got the clothes on. Now, little side secret to, again, the glass blowers that may want to try this. When you knock off lollipop vessels, stand them straight up and down. They're stronger in this direction than they are in the other direction, and they'll take the abuse of this break free. Can you hand me a paddle? And the wood paddle is a little bit softer of a knock. Okay, so Helen's going to pick it up. Got it? Nice clean break. I'm going to cold work it later. That's going in the top box there, Catherine. Awesome job.
Catherine's going to get this.
Big, beautiful bottle.
Door. Helen
all right.
loads it in. There we go.
Successful.
Beautiful
thank
job.
You. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Halfway there.
Carl
You're up,
Siglin.
G.
Uh-oh, all the pressure now. Carl, that was a beautiful vessel. Congratulations on a
Thank you. Some gorgeous
great
colors.
piece.
And you can really see the difference in this taffy application, which I think is in its own right extremely gorgeous. I love this kind of Indian banding of mountains. Looks like a wood grain here. The other thing G does from time to time is this one was actually put in a mold once it was colored, and that's where the definitive striations come from. So that's an option versus this veining of color like you see in actual marble. Turn that around so you can see the other side. That same thing, that beautiful veining of color and the lightening and darkening of the color. There's that beautiful sea green, that beautiful dark, almost black green, one of my favorite colors. So fun, good times. Encalmo number 2, if you joined us late, the one we just did is reverse axis. Anytime the line in the encalmo runs up and down the bottle, that's a reverse axis. Now we could change the axis again Encourage you to go out when you get a second here on the first floor in the market. There's a big case, and there's a giant round bubble that George Kennard made. That's, I think, 8 or 12 cups put together, and he changed the axis, I think, 4 different times. So it ends up with each quadrant being 4 separate cups. So in a totally unlimited number of times it can be done. G is going to do a fairly traditional. Now, one thing he has done, he has what's called a rim cup. So it's opened on the pipe side, and he opened up this end that we're going to put the cup on. So it's a cup that's open on both sides, and that's what gives us this band or ring around the outside, thus the term rim cup. So excellent. Helen's going after his decorative marble cup. He doesn't have to worry about the notch. He's just going to do a straight up. You're going to move over here, G, for that mount
I'll
up.
move over. I'll let her
Get flashed
we'll
up
get
and then
Helen,
get
over
you
there,
back
get
on the
the-
main bench. How are we doing on questions?
I think
Good.
The top there. I'm going to use these big jacks. Would you mind taking those over for me? Thanks. And then, Carl, maybe I'll have you take the calipers. I remember that when we did it the other day, I bumped the calipers, so the cup that I made was actually not the right size.
Okay, we'll double check.
So yeah, let's double check. Let's just double check this one on that, and then you can get that one.
So Helen is picking that cup, and this is a sizable cup. It's probably 4, 5, 6 pounds out. She'll go straight up. Need to get to the heat. That box, this is 1,000 degrees.
Grab the brush just to make
It's right here.
Looks like they're gonna brush off the lip just to make
Now
sure
we are going to
dust-
clean the lip of the cup off. It sits on ceramic, so we're going to make sure there's no ceramic stuck to the lip. Those 2 rings have to seal together, and if there's junk in there, it's going to inhibit that seal. And especially on platters. Platters are probably the most critical of the encalmo process. That glass is going to travel a long distance, centrifugal force involved. If you don't
measure with
seal
the
these 2
calipers
cups
and just
together,
make sure
this,
that's right?
this rim
They're
can
over,
separate in
yeah.
that process. So, any questions from the in-house audience? No, we're getting to the online
Yeah, you want to
people
just
quite a
do
bit.
a quick price check with those calipers?
Yes. This is that price check we're talking about. With mine, we just did a physical line them up, make sure they're close. They don't have to be, we're not measuring to the 1,000ths. It's interesting, this year we did an installation locally at a car dealership named Ferrario Auto Dealership, and
Am I a little bit?
we made 500 pieces that have a foot on the bottom that a metal clamp goes down over. And the engineer could not get his mind around in the beginning that to us,
Opening's the same?
they're going to be
Okay.
a half-inch difference between them.
Mine
And
rounds
those
it
guys
a
are like,
little
well, we're down
Maybe
to the
I'll
3
push it back
1,000ths of an inch. I said, no, we're dealing in half-inch here. So we adjusted, made the cup that fit them a half-inch adjustable, and it worked. But people that deal in 3 1,000ths versus us in quarters and halves.
So I'm going to adjust my cup just a bit. Helen, I'm going to push my cup in just a little bit, and then I think we'll be good. So I could probably do that
Okay.
right now with Catherine's help.
So we got a couple
And,
questions here
I'll
on
come back
G's
over to the
piece.
bench.
How many colors are in the marble? He had a white and 4 separate jewel tone transparents. And then
Yeah, push, please.
the question about the rim. Is it harder to make the rim black and the center colored, or the outside ring colored and the center black? I would say the black on the rim of a platter assists in the process, okay? When we're dealing in colors, we don't deal in colors that are easy or hard. We call them stiff and
Very good.
soft. Soft colors are going to be blacks, blues, and greens. They heat quickly. They stay soft for a while.
think I'll
Stiff
be
colors
ready,
are going to be
Helen.
whites and everything else. So by having the stiffer colors in the center, when he does this final move, when it goes from a bowl out to this beautiful flat plate, that black is going to assist because it's a very soft color. If you had the black in the center and tried to spin the outside, the black would constantly be getting too soft and the rim wouldn't be moving at all. So we do think about that when we're in the process of adding things together. So this is that straight encalmo. Remember, the black cup, as you're looking at it to the left, has 2 holes, one at the pipe, one at the cup. The bottom cup is just a straight line up. And just like that, we've got the 2 encalmo cups together. Yeah, excellent job. Is this the part where we tell him to clap before it's all done? Is bad luck?
Well, I missed center a little bit, so.
He's off a little tiny bit on center, but it's
Remember
not a
when
big
they
deal.
were
He'll
asking
marver
about
that
that?
back together.
Yeah, whoever was asking about that, I did this for you.
Yeah,
And,
somebody asked if you ever get them not lined up. It happens. And a lot of times it happens based on who is helping you, because there's 2 mindsets. There's the straight together, which G and I both operate that way. And then the
I think you just
Italians
threw you
very
under the
often
bus
will
there.
bring this cup downhill. They'll touch the bottom and they'll roll straight up. The problem with it is in the process of rolling up, if anybody moves one side or the other, then they completely miss. They're kind of like the Olympic rings. They're overlaid, but they're not lined
I might
up.
need the other.
That can be a pain. So you kind of want to clarify, are you going straight on, or
Cool.
you're,
Thanks so
and
much, Alan.
it's the person sitting in the seat that decides. You know, G may have done every encalmo he's ever done his whole life by clicking the bottom and rolling it up, but it's my piece. He's got to bring it the way I want it. And then
Wonder
when
why.
I'm assisting him, I do the same thing.
Oh, yeah. No, I think it went pretty smooth. So I'm just
So
going to
now-
take a little marber now, get it hot. And
Gonna get this
I'll
thing
hit it
nice and
straight
hot.
on. There we go. So, see, it's not too hot. It's not going to move around too much. Just seal those edges together. Gonna make sure that the black is on.
Now, are you
Bring the other
pushing or
one to it.
pulling in either direction, G?
Neither at this point. I'm letting the glass do all the work.
Okay.
I'm just switching directions.
That little move with his knee, using your lower back and your hips to pick it up. There's not a lot of glass there. Another glass blowing simple fact. If the glass on the end of the pipe weighs 10 pounds, for every 1 foot that pipe hangs off something, the glass doubles. So when he's there now, if it's off a foot, it goes from 10 pounds to 20 pounds. If he goes for a really deep flash, it's off 2 feet, it goes from 20 pounds to 40 pounds. That's not a lot, but I've seen 100-pound pieces of glass. Now you go from 100 pounds to 200 pounds to 400 pounds. I've seen people break pipes. You know, things go badly. So you have to think about that, and you have to think about the ergonomics. If you want to blow glass for a long time, on how it affects your body, how you pick up pipes. You saw, G, that little hip move just helps. Rather than lifting it entirely with his arm, just use your hip to get that thing up in the
Yeah.
air.
Your legs are a lot stronger than your arms or your back, probably. So
That's it.
use your whole body. So at this point, I'm going to heat up a little more on the bottom. I don't know if you can tell on the screens or not, but I'm heating the bottom of the encalmo cup and not as much of the whole cup, like not the whole black. I know that that black is going to get hot pretty quick. And so I'll spend a little more time on that bottom cup now, just so that in a couple of heats from now, everything's a little more even. If I spend a lot of time all the way in the furnace like this right now, that black is going to be soupy hot, while that marbled bottom part won't be hot at all. That black band will get too hot. It's going to stretch too much. It's going to be very difficult later on. So always thinking a couple heats ahead, but really the only way that you can do that is practice. First couple that I made, obviously didn't go as smooth, didn't go as well. Hopefully this one will go the best yet. So now we also have that big block hooked up. Can we use that? I think we did it on this next heat there, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
I think I used two marbors. You can see how now we're just kind of smoothed out. Got the seal on there pretty well. I don't do a lot of marbering, so it's kind of fun. And then we've got a nice big block. Now the other day I said, hey, let's use the big block to round it up. And I was just going to sit at the bench and grab the block like normal. And then they were holding the block at the bench. And I was thinking, what's going on here? Why are you going to block it? And they said, no. Go out around the edge and use the block on the bench. You won't have to lift the block. You'll have both hands to turn the pipe and sculpt it. And I said, oh yeah, I saw Lino do that at Pilchuck 86, so pretty cool.
And if Lino does it, it needs to be done, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's going to be a good way to solve the problem. They've already solved all the problems, so let's just use those techniques to our own advantage.
For those of you that aren't familiar, Lino Italia Pietra, considered by many to be one of the finest all-around glass blowers. He helped us open the studio. He's been back several times. He became a maestro, one of the youngest to become maestro at the age of 21, I believe it was, on the island of Murano. And he was here, I think, 2.5, 3 years ago. And at 82, 83 years old, still doing some really cutting-edge design. Now, he brings a team of people that do the heavy lifting, but he is very much involved in every piece. And there was a saying for many years that in the process of heating a piece of glass in the reheat chamber, if Lino scratched his behind, that every student in America in the process of heating would scratch their behind because Lino did it. So you have to understand what we're doing and why Lino is doing it, but this is why he does it. See the ability to lift and cool the pipe, and he's also turning at a much faster rate than you can in the block. So very quickly we go from that kind of tall flower pot shape to this beautiful rounded out, and thus the reason Lino does that.
All right, so cool. Thanks, Catherine. Catherine's getting the blow hose so I don't trip and fall. Appreciate that. So at this point, I think we're going to take
What is the smallest?
maybe 2 or 4 heats. I can't remember. It was 1 or 2, maybe.
So we have an online question about the smallest encalmo cup I've ever made. Now, when we were on the cruise ships, on one of my contracts, the group I had out there, we were doing a contest. You had one gather of glass and all the color, and you had to make stuff out of it. So we were doing these little tiny jack-in-the-pulpits and fazzolettos, and somebody had done a tiny little encalmo that probably was only about 4 inches tall, 2 little cups about 1.5 inches in diameter. So it could be done on a micro level. It certainly would be challenging. It would be easy in a lot of ways because you just don't have all the weight, but the smaller it is, I would think the more critical the lineup on those 2 pieces are. But yeah, I don't see, and they do it at the torch. You can encalmo with the torch. So yeah, you could do it on a pretty tiny little scale. So you can already see how we went from that kind of tall shape, now we're heading toward the platter, getting lower, getting wider, and just now, and this is something that G's extremely good at. It's really, at this point, all about the temperature in the 2 halves and how they react to the temperature.
Right. I've got to remember the jack line. Sometimes I overlook that.
Yes.
I was told they were important.
Yeah. Although G did a smart thing here. He put the jack line, started the jack line in that black rim cup. Number one, it will come off as it is if it has to. It wouldn't hurt to make it a little more compact. And when you're doing all the heating and marboring, you don't want the jack line so small that you can't control the vessel. But
Look at that.
to get a jack line that deep into the vessel, you have to be hot that deep into the vessel, and it can be challenging on this amount of glass. So, yeah, thinking through the process, and the production side of G shows up in that. I'll get it started early, and it'll be easier later in the process.
And talk about being on the same page as the folks you're working with. I said, hey, Helen, would you mind preheating the jacks a little bit? She said, I already did. So
Yep.
thanks so much for that. Many hands make light work. Yeah, so the line is mostly already in. I'm just kind of stretching it a little bit in the hope that it does break clean, nice and even. Cut that in just a touch more.
Now you can really see just
Oh,
the
nice.
sheer act of turning that while it's hot, we're getting wider all the time. That newspaper tool just to cool and shape that bottom. Looks like a giant piece of candy from where I'm standing.
Yum.
Got that beautiful wood graining around the outside, much like this other one, Jay. It's going to be gorgeous.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see the inside.
Yeah, remember, we haven't seen the inside. That's the thing about a platter that's really critical, is when this spins out.
So I'm going to take one more heat, round it up one more time. Then we'll put the foot on.
I'll get ready to
The
block.
foot's a lot of fun. I just drip them on hot. And Helen, you brought the last one that was perfect, so I'll have you do that again this time.
Smaller this time, or?
You know, maybe about the same, yeah. I'll just cut
dive
a
in
little
here.
less.
We're going to drop a foot on this. The platters both have a
It'll
foot.
be a minute,
It works both as a foot if the platter is sitting. It also works as an anchor point if you want to hang these on the wall. Question?
Yeah, this is from Katie's mom. She wants to know.
Mama Hobbs.
An encalmo platter with wavy lines on the edges, like a
You can, yes. Can you do an encalmo handkerchief bowl? You can. This is a handkerchief bowl, something that has a ruffled edge like this. When G spins this out to a platter, if you just keep turning, you maintain that shape. If he stopped turning and hung this toward the floor, those edges would all ruffle in on themselves. So
we'll let that spin open on its own a little bit wider.
just turning and letting gravity or centrifugal force just start to. Now you can't see G is occasionally tapping that foot pedal. This is what's nice about this automated assistant, is just tap it and push that bottom right out nice and easy. I got this.
Even
if
though
you
we
wanna-
want a platter here, I'm not going to make it perfectly flat. I'm going to leave it just a little bit round.
Just protecting G's bicep. 1,800 degrees coming off that piece. He's wearing a
So far
Kevlar
out.
sleeve, but this just helps.
Give me 1 sec before he started things. Now, the thing about the foot is that when you put them on hot, that's when you sink the bottom in. You get that kind of dome of doom, people call it, where on the inside of the piece it's got this big hump. It's because this part is so hot, when you put that hot gob of glass in, it literally just pushes its way right in. We don't want that right now. So we'll let this really cool down first. Then when we pour that next gob of glass on there, it won't melt the bottom too fast. We'll be able to cool it with a graphite paddle, smooth it out, and get that shape.
Stand this up, drop it on.
Yeah, I'll stand it up and drop it on. Yep. And then, is there a scrap anywhere where I can just mark the center? Sometimes I miss the center. It's nice to,
Let me get you a stringer.
on a big wide, I could probably do it, but,
She's going to do a little technique here.
oh, look at this. All right, we got a giant stringer.
I think that's sharp enough. You can just,
Yeah.
we're going to scratch the center of the vessel. Just take a little piece of glass, touch it down, and then turn, and you get a perfectly round center point. I'll get that
Yes,
out
sir.
of your way so you don't get cut on it. Simple glass blower trick to make finding center easier. When you stand this plate on its end, he's going to stand the bowl up and he's going to drip the glass
Wide
on.
one.
When you're teaching beginners to do this, you always have a set of extra shears there, because glass blowing shears, if you don't shear the two blades together mechanically yourself, the glass will go between the blades, then you can't get them open. So now you're stuck up here, you got 1500 degrees radiating off your bowl, you got the heat of the glass that just dripped on there, things are falling all apart. So he may drip his hand in water before he makes the cut. That's risky because you're going to be above your piece. You don't want to drip water on the piece. Helen's going to do what we call two gathered up one. She's going to cool this down, and then we'll just literally drip this right onto his vertically standing piece.
All right, looks like Helen's going in for that gather. Awesome, yeah.
You can see as this cools, those colors really starting to pop. Got a beautiful kind of wood grain all the way around the edge of this plate.
We'll just let it round out a little bit. We'll stand this up on end. All right, this is the part I love.
Drip that on there. And like I say, he's got to be able to reach in there and get this cut made. She's been doing it enough to get that cut without any problems and then come right back to horizontal. Catherine's just backing him up. This is what we were talking about with that peace of mind. If you're not paying attention, there's enough weight in the piece to pop that into the iron off the rail. And the reaction is, as a gaffer, is if it comes up, to just slam it back down on the bench. And that can be enough to knock this thing off on the floor. So bigger pieces, just take practice. You got to pay attention. It's something you need to think about. So having the extra person just help with the backup, it allows G to reach around and just concentrate on that foot.
Awesome bit, Helen. Look at that. Thank
Trying
you.
to stay a little bit out of your way so you folks can see that actually happening.
All right, let's flash that, or I'll flash that, and then we'll.
So now we've got to go to the punty, that temporary handle. You saw it on my piece. Same concept from here on out. We're going to attach to the punty iron, break it off the blowpipe, and then finish spinning this thing out. You're going to be right on time, G.
We've got 11 minutes.
11 minutes. You got lots of time.
I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
I think the last one took 10 and a half minutes from this point, so that's perfect. We've got some folks in the front row that have been here the whole hour and 50 minutes so far, so thanks so much for sticking around. Yeah, we're getting the
It's mesmerizing,
thumbs up
isn't
sign
it? In
from
every
them.
sense of the word.
I think it'd be tough to leave, like, well, obviously I love glassmaking, but it'd be tough to watch a half a piece like the one you made or half the one I made and
Yep.
get up
Walk
and
away.
leave. So.
Now, we do want to point out, we talked about the Bring the Heat demonstrations every other Wednesday. The back shows are available online if you go to the website or the museum's YouTube page. The other thing is, every other Wednesday, we're doing a You Design It, We Make It. So next week, we'll be making one of those. Last week, Helen did a fantastic donut monster on a portable donut truck from a young lady, Sophia, out on the west coast of the U.S., and they were able to get up early and watch the whole thing online. And what I thought was really interesting and kind of cool, she invited her art teacher from school to watch. And we got this really nice email from our art teacher saying, hey, thanks for helping at a time when arts are struggling and money's not necessarily there. It was nice to see us as a museum really reach out and support the local artists and the design capabilities. How old was Sophia? I don't remember. Do you guys know? 6?
6.
tick, so we took this little 6-year-old's design, and it always comes with a written story, and we were able to incorporate. We had to do some little bit of artistic liberty because she had the donut monster on these spindly little legs holding the donut truck out. We're like, well, that's never going to get in the mail all the way to Seattle. So
Okay.
we ended up making the donut monster sitting on the donut truck. So we do things that allow it to work within the medium that we have, but came out fantastic. Helen and the team did a wonderful job.
Next week is fairy tale.
Next week is fairy tale theme, and if you guys want to try for that, go online. You can find the You Design It, We Make It connection there. You can draw a picture and send it in online, and if you're fortunate enough to be chosen, that piece, I think there's a small
This is
shipping
the way
fee,
to
and we
do it.
ship it out to you,
hang
and
out.
you can have it forever. So awesome time, and it gives us, as glass blowers, you know, we're used to making bowls and plates and platters all day long. It's really nice to be able to say, okay, we got to make a donut monster. How do you make a donut monster
You
on
ready
a
to go,
truck?
Alan?
So
You ready?
here we go, little transfer.
Bring this
Got
towards
that
me.
jack line, a little bit of water. She's doing the same thing I did.
do
You,
one
you
more of
grab a
those.
big handful of water, and then you just roll the pipe and let that water run all the way around the edge. And this is a pretty heavy little smack. And just like that, we're not attached to the blowpipe anymore. Fantastic.
Cool.
I got your pipe, G.
Thanks, sir. Well, I'm glad it broke free. It looked like it broke free pretty even, so that's
Yeah, broke
important
nice
at
and
this
clean.
point. On a big, wide piece like this, when they don't break even, wow, are they hot to trim. We've all probably had to trim one of those before, and your thumb, everything is just on fire. So I'm really happy that broke off clean and easy. And I'm going to let Helen take a heat for just a moment. I'm going to get a drink of water. And then, Carl, we've got to remember the rollers.
Yeah, I'm going to get the one on there
A large
now.
wooden board.
I'm fine with it.
All right, staying hydrated. Okay, I'm gonna put on, I think I'll put on this big sleeve I've got too. When I put on all that water, I pulled up my one sleeve just so I didn't get it super wet, because a piece like this, it just, so much heat will come off of it, and believe it or not, your sleeve gets a little wet, and boy, your whole arm will steam right up, so. Yeah, I learned that one the hard way too. So, all right, we're gonna put this neat aluminum sleeve on, that should help out.
Well, baked potato.
Yeah, we're gonna bake like a potato. That's right. All right, can I have one of those closed? Or just, you wanna close that whole thing down? Cool. Yeah, I think I'll just heat like that for a sec. No, I think that's good for now. When I'm heating this right now, I really don't need to heat the punty, flash the punty at the moment. Oh, actually, I'll take that open. The foot at all, you want to I'm gonna try to avoid the heat on the foot at this point, just because your whole piece will start to wobble around a little off center. And the goal right now is, for me anyway, just to kind of keep that foot turning on center, and the whole rest of it will heat up. We'll keep that on center with that nice centered foot. So if I keep my foot on center, I know that the rest of the piece will follow suit. If I'm just paying attention to the opening, and I keep the opening on center, but I let the rest of it fall off center, when we go to open it up in the end, that foot causing it off center, the whole piece will be off center.
You really see things are just starting to open up simply
yeah,
by
look at that.
heating and turning.
The new one's on order.
Whoop. Gotta look around that one. All right, I think I'll start by actually just kind of papering the black.
Now, I want to try to show you something and
I'm
see if I
okay
can get
with
it
the
to make
shield.
sense.
Thank you.
So when we open bowls, the natural tendency as you heat the bowl is for it to do this, okay? We don't want to do that. We want it to do this and then that at the end. I want to push this part out first. If we just do this, this gets too thin out here. So we're going to take this round bowl, we're going to try to push the shoulders out, lay the back of the platter at the last minute, roll the rim out nice and flat. It's hard to show you. Once you see it, it makes sense, but that's the way you get perfectly flat plates. If you just continue to spin right now, the rim will come out, but the bowl will stay
Catherine, you're
fairly
in the hot
round
spot.
because the rim's too soft. So you got to really start to get the shoulders of the bowl headed toward the right direction, and the last minute centrifugal force just makes it happen. And it's really about, you know, there's a really good saying that we've spent 2 hours doing this show this
we've got
morning. Between G and I,
3
there's
more,
over
including
40
this
years
one.
of experience here. So it's 2 hours and 40 years of work to make this happen. So You know, and then if you add up, you know, Helen's 25 years and Catherine's 20 years and Amanda's what,
please.
2 years of glass blowing skills. We got 100+ years of glass blowing skills on this stage, so.
All right, Helen, I'll have you board this time. I didn't have her board last time, but we'll do that this time. Again, I'm just actually keeping the foot on center first. Cooling that off. Okay, go ahead and push. Yep. Great.
It's really starting to open it up and then using that newspaper tool just to cool that rim. You don't want that so hot that it just pops right out on you. Really
Let's
need
do
to
one
control.
more of those.
One more of those and then go.
Amanda, will you get a photo with the board on fire and we're just over there tooling the piece and all that? That's my favorite. I was just looking last night. Sure, yeah, let's wax it up.
Wax up the
I
board.
haven't posted anything to my Instagram in about a year and a half, but I'll
This is the glass
we'll post
blower's
that good one
magic
of the
trick
everything
here.
on fire. Well, it looks like I think this will be our second to last heat coming up. I think we'll have one more heat after this. And so again, I want to thank everybody, Carl and I, Catherine, Helen, thank everybody for tuning in, checking out the museum here and watching the demonstration. Hopefully you've enjoyed it as much as we have, learned a little bit along the way. Open, please. It's been a lot of fun and a real honor to make this for you folks.
Turn speed's critical here too. Turn too fast, it opens. You see he's turning it almost at the point of collapse.
So again, getting that foot back on center. Okay, yep, on there.
Lots of smoke and flames. Staying right in there, getting all the flames. There we
That's
go.
the one, yeah.
I was like, where do I go?
Yeah, we just got to keep on going. That's fun.
A glass blower spontaneously combusted at the
Will
Corning
you,
Museum
Carl, we
of
get
Glass today
the roller on there? Pardon?
while attempting to get
there
a
was-
cool camera
I'll take
photo.
that other left door too. Can you close that one while I'm in there for a moment, and I'll have you get the big ones on this one. Yeah, there was a glassmaker here at the museum that said, "People love fire. We got a lot of that." Yeah.
One more heater.
I think this might be it. Okay, will you open that left side for me?
Okay, again, that one roller is not
Okay,
super
open
tight.
please. Open please.
But there we
again,
go.
we're
Just
just-
spinning out, getting nice and flat.
Spinning it out. No, we're not spinning real fast. Just let the heat do the work. This is the point to really just kind of enjoy all that hard work that you've put into making the piece. This is the big reveal here. You get to see the inside. This is the part. There we go. Kept it pretty round. Kept it pretty flat. There's a panel there. Just a light. Yeah, you can see where I missed the encalmo together right there. That's okay. For the most part, pretty nice. Boy, I'm happy with the, yeah, look at the way those colors swirl and mix together. I'm really happy with that. So fun. Quite painterly.
Nice job. Awesome. Oh, God, they're gorgeous. Beautiful colors. Really nice.
All right. Nothing left to do but put it in the annealer. And yeah. Oh, I'll, if you leave it there, I'll just climb in. No point in lifting up more stuff than we need to. Carl, you've got the potato jacket on. You're about to
I do.
fry,
I'm
aren't you?
ready.
Stick your head in the oven. Fantastic. All right. So, Helen, can you bring the back end down? That just makes
Drop.
sure no water gets on the platter itself. And we'll just stop turning for a sec. And I think, what did we do? 3 or 4 of those last time? 4 last time, Helen said? Might as well keep with that. And then, Carl, what'd you do? You grabbed onto it and
I can
lifted
pick it up right here. We're good.
Okay. Let me do one more for fun. I got to enjoy this. Okay, go ahead and grab onto it, Carl. There we go. Nice, easy.
You get break
tap.
free.
Perfect punny. Breaks free. I'm going to just fire polish that sharp edge. Not really smooth out, but just get rid of any sharp edge in there. Cool. Thanks so much. Don't clap yet. He could still trip. Look at that. Catherine's got the annealer door. Fantastic. In there, safe and sound. All right, there we go. Let's hear it for the team.
Hey.
Carl Siglin,
Fantastic.
Catherine Ayers, Helen Tegler. Got Amanda here and Wilbur up in the booth. So again, I'm G. Bryan. I want to thank everybody for coming out. Carl and I appreciate you folks spending your time with us. And again, enjoy. Thanks so much for coming out.